Welcome back. In this lecture we will discuss evaluating stochastic algorithms. So when you do things like take random restarts, randomize selection in these local search algorithms, it actually becomes quite challenging to understand which ones are working better. So how do we go about doing this? Well, let's look at some kind of obvious ways to do this. So let's say one is solving the problem 30% of the time very quickly, but doesn't halt for the other 70% of cases. So is that useful to know? We have a second one that actually solves it more often, but maybe not as fast as the first, and then again it has a 40% of cases where it doesn't solve. And now we have a third one where in all cases it solves it 100% of the time, but it does so very slowly. So which one do we want to use? Summary statistics such as mean runtime, median runtime, they don't make much sense here because we have a lot of, quite often these algorithms are not even terminating. And when they don't terminate, they're eating up a lot of time and computational resources while they're doing that. So we can look instead maybe at a runtime distribution where you could look at the runtime or number of steps on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis you can look at the proportion of runs that are solved within that runtime. And how would we generate this? Well, you want to run the same algorithm on the same instance for a number of trials, 100 or 1,000. And then you want to sort the trials by runtime, and then from that it becomes easy to plot. So you also, of course, want to do this a few times to understand variability, and you can use some standard statistic techniques for that. And another key thing to consider is, are we going to consider runtime or number of steps? If the number of steps it takes to solve are thought to be uniform in terms of the time they consume, it actually may be a good idea to consider number of steps in your study because that makes things independent of the underlying hardware. However, if there's going to be variability in the steps, then it may not be a good idea because you're not doing an apples-to-apples comparison. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this discussion on evaluating local search algorithms. Please stay tuned for more content.